Rev up your engines!
Carolyn V say, is it possible to make tires so they don't wear out? Well, there's always friction. The weight of your car is driving, and then when you stop, the tire has to get friction to hold down. Tires will always wear out. But I remember ages ago, when I was a young mechanic, I was reading a magazine, and they were touting they can have silicone tires now that will last 150,000 miles. Well, that never came to fruition, and I kind of in my own head think today, I bet they probably could make them, but why would they want to make them? Because then they'd kick themselves in the rear end. Why would a tire company start making tires that last 150,000 miles when they can wear out in 50 to 60,000 and sell you another set of tires? That probably has something to do with it. I mean, they're always going to wear out at some point in time, but I'm sure they can make them that could last a lot longer than they actually do. But they'd probably be kicking themselves in the rear end. Just like a similar thing is windshield wiper blades. You can actually buy silicone wiper blades, and they cost more. They might be $25 a piece. But I had ones on my old Toyota that I had on for 20 years, and they still worked. Cleaned them every once in a while. You'll never get that out of just plain old natural rubber blades. So there's got to be a point in that they don't want to make them to last too long. Chatty Audi says, what's the best used car, BMW E61 or Volvo V70N? Well, you're buying a used European car, you're going to buy a money pit with either of those. I don't care which one you buy. On that situation, I'd have to say to BMW, because realize that Volvo has been bought by the Chinese, and they say that in the future they're only going to make electric cars and hybrid cars. And so eventually you're not going to be able to get parts. People aren't going to work on those cars. BMW is big enough that I don't see them going bankrupt anytime soon. People love driving their cars around and like spending money on their BMW. They do handle well, I'll give them that. So I'd have to say BMW to that, but I would buy neither of them. Blaine Tribop says, Scotty, is it necessary to have a catalytic converter in a state where there are no inspections? I believe it's federal law in the United States. You got to have a catalytic converter, right? So if you take it off, you're breaking federal law. But the only thing the catalytic converter serves a purpose is to burn onboard hydrocarbons that come out of your engine. And of course, if you take it off, the vehicle will run better. That's just the way it goes. But it also pollutes more. So I believe it's against federal law to do that. But I mean, if they don't inspect your car in your state, it's your car, you know, you can do whatever you want with it as far as I'm concerned. But I believe you'd be breaking federal law. Jamie says, Scotty, does having the AC on always make my gas mileage worse? In town, on a modern car, a tiny bit. But not on the highway, because here's the thing. I just read a study that a guy did. He had a Mustang, and he rolled the windows down and went on a 400-mile trip with the AC turned off. Then he rolled the windows up and turned the AC on. And it turns out they got about exactly the same mileage both ways, because at highway speeds, rolling down the windows created more air turbulence, and the friction of the car having to go through that lowered the gas mileage about exactly the same as rolling the windows up and being aerodynamic and turning the AC on. So a modern car on a highway doesn't do that much. And in town, maybe a tiny bit more, but it really doesn't make all that much difference. They don't strain that much. When I was a young mechanic, yeah, the GMs had those A8 8-cylinder air conditioning compressors that were huge with 3 pounds of Freon in them. And yeah, they could drain your gas mileage, but not on a modern day car. Jake Winberg says, I got a 2013 Sonata. Bought it for a recall at 70,000 miles because the original engine was bad. They replaced it for nothing, and now it's running smooth. You got lucky that they replaced it for nothing. But if I had a Toyota and the engine went bad, even if they replaced it, I'd think, do I really trust this company? They sold me a car with a bad engine. And they had a lot of bad engines in those Hyundais. They recalled a whole bunch of them because they didn't build them right. And they screwed up somewhere down the line when they manufacture. They get metal fragments inside them. So basically, I don't trust the company that builds an engine that breaks that fast. It's the way I feel about it. That's why I tell people, even with Toyotas, don't buy a new model that just came out, especially if it's got a new engine or transmission. Let it run a few years to see how time works and how it settles out and if it's a good vehicle or not a good vehicle. And if I had a vehicle, the engine went out at 70,000 miles, I don't care if they put an engine for free, I would not buy another one. Son Sally Kid says my grandma's owned a 2004 Taurus for years, and once in a while it slips in second gear and the transmission fluid's bubbly. Well, I'm surprised that a 16-year-old Ford Taurus is still going down the line. You said it's your grandma's. I'm assuming she really drives like a grandma, and if she does, that's why it lasted as long as it could. I had customers, those things, they went out when when they were 5, 6 years old, and that thing's 16 years old. Just basically baby the thing. It's so old. Even if you change the fluid and filter now, that may damage it, and it might start to slip even worse. Just live with what that is. And if it's grandma's car, and say grandma gets old enough, doesn't drive anymore, for heaven's sake, don't take it off her hand and start driving it fast, because I've had people do that, and within a few months, they go out entirely and the transmissions don't even work. If it's been babied by grandma, let her just still drive it and baby it. You know, as long as it runs, you don't want to put any money in an old thing like that. Mark C. Littler, are hot air balloons reliable? Well, they're as reliable as the person who's maintaining them to make sure they're not ripped and that your little burner's working correctly. But when you're talking about flying one around, its reliability depending only upon which way the wind is blowing. And that's not all that reliable. I've been up in hot air balloons. It's kind of fun, I gotta say. But I mean, a great place to do it is New Mexico, because you go in the middle of nowhere where there's nothing around, so you don't have to worry about hitting power lines or running into something in wide open spaces. It's really fun. Or a lot of places that do it in urban areas, they're tethered balloons, so they just go up and down on a cable and they can't go any far. And that's the safest one. I mean, in Niagara Falls, they got one for tourists to see the falls, and it just goes up on a tether and comes back down. You want to try one out, start that route. You can't use it for transportation, though. You never know where you're going to end up. Manny Palacio says, yo, Scotty, our Suzuki Hayabusa is a good daily driver. Those are screaming motorcycles. They were the first real motorcycle you could buy stock that would go 200 miles an hour. I think they're rev limited now, but they used to go 200 miles an hour. And they're totally dependable vehicles. If you have a vehicle that can go 200 miles an hour and you drive the speed limit 30 miles an hour, let's face it, that sucker's going to last forever, you know? You're not going to wear the thing out, but realize it's a heavy motorcycle. And if you're driving in town, those heavy motorcycles, they're not that nimble for doing in-town traffic things. You're better off with a 600cc Suzuki then, because it's lighter weight and it'll handle better in traffic, and it's got plenty of power too. Mr. Snow Monkey 32, Scotty, huge fan. I'm thinking about buying a new SUV, deciding between a Ford Explorer and a Toyota Highlander. Thank you. Oh, the Highlander by far. It'll outlast that thing 2 or 3 times. They make great. If you can afford the price of a Highlander, if you can't afford the price of a new one, get a used one. I got a customer's one, original engine and trend. He's got 550,000 miles on that sucker, and it still runs good. You can't even question. It's just a matter of the price. That's just a matter of what your upfront cost is going to be. Treyas says, take your sunglasses off. Well, you wouldn't want me to, because if I took my sunglasses off, I wouldn't be able to read the questions on my computer screen, and I wouldn't be able to see the camera, because if I go like this, everything's blurry except this, that close to my head. Even that's blurry there, so. And I got stage lights pointing back this way at my head so you can see me, so I'm not going to take them off. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.